In today's video, we are going to look at the most terrifying animal attacks ever recorded, from a wilderness blogger in Montana's Grizzly territory to a travel photographer's final shot in South Africa. It was March 15, 2015. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the vast salt pan of Etosha National Park, Namibia, transforming the white mineral crust into shimmering gold. Scattered acacia trees dotted the landscape like ancient sentinels in the harsh Namibian wilderness. Everett Mays, a 34-year-old history teacher from Louisville, Kentucky, gripped the wheel of their rented Toyota Hilux. His methodical nature had earned him respect among colleagues. Beside him sat Trina Rowan, 31, a travel nurse from Springfield, Missouri, whose fearless approach to emergency medicine had saved countless lives in trauma units. The couple had met 3 years earlier at a backpacking expo, bonding over their shared belief that guidebooks were for the timid. Everett's analytical mind complemented Trina's bold instincts. He researched destinations obsessively while she pushed toward remote adventures. Their relationship thrived on proving they were different from ordinary tourists. Previous expeditions to photograph grizzly bears in Alaska and track wolves in Montana had reinforced their confidence. Everett had studied animal behavior patterns extensively, while Trina's medical training made her believe she could handle any emergency. For their anniversary, they'd chosen Namibia's lesser-known parks over Kenya's crowded Masai Mara. Park warning signs were clear: remain in vehicles at all times, especially during dawn and dusk when predators are most active. Yet Everett's research convinced him these rules applied to inexperienced visitors, not seasoned adventurers. Trina agreed. Her years treating accident victims had made her confident in assessing danger. Near the Okokwejo waterhole, Trina spotted movement beneath a large acacia tree 60 yards away. Through her telephoto lens, she identified a solitary lioness, her tawny coat blending with dried grass. African lionesses are apex predators weighing 265 to 395 pounds of muscle and instinct. Primary hunters of the pride, they reach speeds of 50 miles per hour in short bursts. Their jaws exert over 650 pounds per square inch of bite force, while retractable claws extend 1.5 inches, designed to grip and tear flesh. Everett studied the lioness through binoculars, cataloging her relaxed posture and slow breathing. Everything he'd read suggested calm animals posed minimal threat. Despite prohibition signs, his analytical nature convinced him they could approach safely for a unique photograph. They positioned their smartphone on the Toyota's hood, activating the timer. Everett's plan was precise: walk 20 feet from their vehicle, pose with the lioness in the background, and return quickly. His confidence, combined with Trina's fearless nature, overrode any caution. The lioness had tracked them from the moment they exited. Her ears rotated toward the closing car doors, amber eyes following their movement. Apparent indifference masked the calculated patience of an apex predator assessing prey. As they positioned themselves for the photograph, Trina's bold instincts took over. Hoping to capture the lioness's attention for a dramatic shot, she softly clapped twice. The sharp sound cut through the evening air like a dinner bell. The lioness exploded from her position with terrifying speed, powerful hindquarters propelling her massive frame forward. The distance Everett had calculated as safe collapsed in seconds as she bounded forward, claws extended, jaws agape. Everett instinctively stepped between the charging predator and Trina. The lioness struck with freight train force, her 300-pound frame driving him backward. Her claws raked across his chest and shoulders, tearing through cotton into flesh beneath. Impact fractured 3 ribs and punctured his left lung. Her powerful jaws clamped down on his throat with crushing force. 3-inch canine teeth penetrated deep, severing his carotid artery and crushing his windpipe. Blood sprayed across salt-stained ground as his body convulsed. Trina's screams pierced the evening air as she fled toward their vehicle. The lioness released Everett's lifeless form and pursued. Trina managed 15 feet before superior speed closed the gap. The lioness struck from behind, claws raking down her back, tearing through hiking pants into muscle. Impact sent Trina sprawling face first into rocky ground, sustaining severe facial abrasions. As she crawled toward safety, the lioness seized her left leg, crushing bite, fracturing tibia and fibula. Trina's cries echoed across the salt pan as the lioness shook her leg violently, behavior designed to disorient prey. The predator repositioned, clamping down on Trina's lower back with devastating force. Her spine snapped under pressure, instantly paralyzing her lower body. The lioness maintained her grip for several minutes, instincts driving her to ensure the prey was subdued. Trina's movements gradually weakened as blood loss and spinal trauma took their toll. Shallow, labored breathing marked her final moments. Car horns and shouting voices reached the site as tourists, having heard screams, arrived to investigate. They found the lioness positioned near her victims, muzzle stained with blood, showing no fear of approaching vehicles. Rangers arrived within 30 minutes, using tranquilizer darts to subdue the lioness before relocating her. Investigation revealed multiple safety protocol violations, though officials declined to pursue charges against the deceased couple's estate. It was September 15, 2016, in Glacier National Park, Montana. The morning mist clung to the jagged peaks as four college friends made their way along the winding mountain trail. Ellis Graber, a 21-year-old photography student from Utah, adjusted his camera strap and surveyed the wilderness stretching before them. Ellis had convinced his three roommates to join him on this road trip through Montana, promising content for their new adventure blog. Known on campus for his fearless approach to capturing the perfect shot, Ellis often pushed boundaries that made his friends nervous. His portfolio was filled with dramatic cliff-edge selfies and close encounters with wildlife that had earned him a reputation as someone who trusted his instincts over safety guidelines. The group had been hiking since dawn, following a lesser-known trail that Ellis had discovered through online forums. The path wound along a steep ridge overlooking a valley where park rangers had recently reported increased grizzly activity due to late-season berry feeding. Grizzly bears are among the most formidable predators in North America, with adult males weighing up to 800 pounds and possessing the ability to run at speeds exceeding 30 miles per hour. Their powerful claws, measuring up to 4 inches in length, are designed for digging and can easily tear through flesh and bone. During late summer and early fall, grizzlies enter hyperphagia, consuming up to 20,000 calories daily to prepare for winter hibernation. This feeding frenzy makes them particularly territorial when disturbed. As the group crested a rocky outcrop, Ellis spotted movement in the valley below. A massive grizzly bear was methodically stripping berries from bushes roughly 150 feet downhill. Ellis immediately pulled out his camera, excitement overriding caution as he began snapping photos from their elevated position. Ellis suggested they move closer to the cliff edge for a better angle, positioning themselves for what he called a zoomed-in style group selfie with the bear visible in the background below. His friends hesitated, but Ellis was already moving toward a narrow ledge that jutted out from the main trail. The sound of shifting rocks and excited voices carried down into the valley. The grizzly's head snapped up, its small, dark eyes scanning the cliff face above. Bears possess exceptional hearing, and the unusual sounds from an elevated position triggered their defensive instincts. Ellis, focused on framing the perfect shot, took another step closer to the edge. The loose shale beneath his feet gave way, sending rocks tumbling down the cliff face. The noise echoed through the valley as Ellis struggled to regain his balance, his arms windmilling as more rocks cascaded downward. The grizzly immediately identified the source of the disturbance. Perceiving a potential threat from above, the bear began climbing the steep incline, its powerful claws finding purchase on the rocky terrain. The ascent was methodical but determined, taking nearly 4 minutes as the massive animal navigated the treacherous slope. Ellis's friends scrambled backward along the trail, shouting warnings as they retreated to safety. Ellis, still trying to save his expensive camera gear, lost precious seconds before realizing the magnitude of danger approaching from below. He turned to follow his friends, but slipped on the loose rocks. The unstable shale gave way completely beneath Ellis's feet. He fell hard, tumbling 15 feet down the cliff face before landing on a narrow rocky shelf with a sickening crack. His left leg twisted at an unnatural angle, the femur snapping from the impact. Sharp rocks tore through his jacket and opened deep gashes across his arms and torso. The Grizzly reached the base of the cliff and began climbing toward Ellis's position on the ledge. Trapped and unable to move due to his broken leg, Ellis could only watch as 800 pounds of muscle and fury approached. The bear, now in full defensive mode, hauled itself onto the narrow shelf. The Grizzly's first swipe caught Ellis across the chest, its 4-inch claws raking through flesh and muscle with devastating force. The impact launched Ellis backward off the ledge, sending him tumbling another 30 feet down the rocky slope. His body struck multiple outcroppings during the fall, each impact causing additional fractures to his ribs and spine. Ellis landed at the base of the cliff, his neck twisted at a fatal angle from striking a large boulder. The combination of massive blood loss from the bear's claws, multiple internal injuries from the falls, and severe cervical spine trauma caused his death within minutes. The Grizzly, having eliminated what it perceived as a threat, retreated back into the forest. Ellis's friends reached the nearest ranger station 2 hours later after hiking back to the trailhead. The remote location and challenging terrain delayed the helicopter rescue response until late afternoon. Search and rescue teams located Ellis's body at the base of the cliff as darkness fell. Park officials launched an investigation into the incident, ultimately determining that the bear had acted defensively when startled by the group's presence and the falling rocks. The Grizzly was not pursued or relocated, as its behavior fell within normal defensive parameters for the species. The tragedy prompted Ellis's university to implement mandatory wilderness safety training for students participating in outdoor photography programs. It was March 15, 2016, in the Sariska Tiger Reserve Buffer Zone, Rajasthan, India. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dry, deciduous forest of Rajasthan as 3 American backpackers stepped out of their hired tuk-tuk. The air hung heavy with dust and the lingering scent of mahua flowers from the recent spring bloom. Josie Kelm, a 22-year-old recent graduate from Colorado, stretched her arms wide as she surveyed the rugged landscape dotted with dock trees and rocky outcroppings. Her companions, Devin Lowry and Sierra Tran, gathered their camera equipment while their driver pointed toward a narrow trail leading up a gentle ridge. Josie had convinced her friends to take this detour during their month-long journey through India. Fresh out of college and hungry for authentic experiences, she had grown tired of crowded tourist sites and sanitized wildlife tours. When their tuk-tuk driver mentioned a quiet spot just outside Sariska Tiger Reserve, where locals sometimes glimpsed wildlife, Josie immediately seized the opportunity. Devin had expressed concerns about venturing into unofficial areas, but Josie's enthusiasm proved infectious. Sierra, though naturally cautious, found herself swept along by her friend's adventurous spirit. The buffer zone surrounding Sariska had become increasingly active following the monsoon season. Recent territorial shifts had pushed several tigers beyond the reserve's official boundaries as they sought new hunting grounds and water sources. Local forest guards had noted fresh pug marks and scratch marks throughout the area, but this information rarely reached casual visitors or unlicensed guides. Bengal tigers are apex predators weighing up to 660 pounds, capable of leaping horizontally over 30 feet and reaching speeds of 35 miles per hour in short bursts. Their powerful jaws exert a bite force of 1,050 pounds per square inch, designed to crush vertebrae and windpipes with devastating efficiency. These solitary hunters rely on stealth and ambush tactics, using their distinctive orange and black stripes to blend seamlessly with tall grass and dappled forest shadows. As the 3 friends climbed the rocky trail, Josie spotted a fallen log near the clearing's edge, its bark scored with deep parallel gouges. The scratch marks appeared fresh, with wood shavings scattered at the base. But Josie dismissed Devon's warnings about their significance. She positioned herself on the log, while Sierra set up their camera's timer function on a small tripod. The device's red light blinked steadily as they arranged themselves for the photograph. A young male Bengal tiger had been tracking their scent for several minutes from dense undergrowth 40 yards away. The 3-year-old cat, recently expelled from his mother's territory, had been exploring this new area when the unfamiliar sounds and smells drew his attention. The sudden mechanical click of the camera timer triggered his predatory instincts. The tiger exploded from the brush with terrifying speed, covering the distance in 3 powerful bounds. Josie never saw the attack coming. The 400-pound predator struck her from behind with both front paws, his extended claws raking deep furrows across her back and shoulders. The impact launched her forward off the log as his jaws clamped down on the back of her neck. The tiger's canine teeth, each nearly 3 inches long, punctured through muscle and vertebrae with surgical precision. His bite severed her spinal cord at the C2 vertebra, while simultaneously crushing her trachea. Josie's body went limp instantly as the tiger dragged her toward the tree line, his powerful neck muscles easily supporting her weight. Devon and Sierra's screams echoed across the clearing as they scrambled down the rocky slope, their camera equipment abandoned. The tiger paid them no attention, focused entirely on securing his prey. He carried Josie's lifeless form into dense undergrowth where territorial scent marking had established his temporary claim to the area. Forest Department officials arrived within 2 hours of the Friends' frantic report to local police. The recovery team found Josie's body 200 meters from the attack site, partially concealed beneath a thorny shrub. The camera's memory card revealed the final moments before the attack, showing the 3 friends posing while the tiger's striped form remained barely visible in the background vegetation. An investigation revealed that their unlicensed guide had knowingly brought tourists into a restricted buffer zone where recent tiger activity had been documented. The man faced charges under India's Wildlife Protection Act, though he claimed ignorance of the specific dangers. Josie's parents issued a brief statement requesting privacy while expressing gratitude for the swift response of local authorities. The incident prompted renewed discussions about tourist safety protocols near India's tiger reserves, with several conservation groups calling for stricter enforcement of buffer zone regulations. It was March 15, 2018. The rugged limestone terrain of the Texas Hill Country stretched under the fading afternoon sun, its rocky outcroppings creating perfect hiding spots for elusive predators. 59-year-old Orrin Daxter surveyed his 800-acre cattle ranch from his weathered porch, a property he had purchased after retiring from oil contracting. His decades of solving complex drilling problems had instilled dangerous confidence that every challenge could be handled personally. Neighbor Jake Morrison had reported spotting a large cat moving through the area at dawn, describing an animal easily 6 feet long. Initially skeptical, Daxter's attitude shifted when ranch hands Miguel Santos and Tom Bradley found partially consumed deer carcasses with distinctive claw marks. Daxter decided to investigate personally rather than rely on slow-moving state wildlife officials, needing to either confirm or dispel his workers' growing fears about the isolated sections of property. Mountain lions represent North America's most formidable apex predators. Adult females weigh between 80 to 130 pounds, with body lengths reaching 8 feet. These cats possess extraordinary capabilities, leaping vertically 18 feet and horizontally over 40 feet. Their retractable claws extend nearly 2 inches, while powerful jaws generate bite forces exceeding 400 pounds per square inch. Most critically, female cougars with cubs exhibit extreme territorial behavior, attacking perceived threats with lethal force rather than retreating. Armed with an LED flashlight and smartphone, Daxter followed a game trail toward rocky outcroppings where recent kills were discovered. At 7:30 p.m., he spotted a 120-pound mountain lion resting beneath a limestone overhang 60 yards ahead. Her tawny coat blended seamlessly with the surrounding sandstone as she lay in a shallow depression. Rather than retreating, Daxter approached within 20 feet, reasoning that documenting the cat's presence would provide evidence while demonstrating she posed no threat to respectful humans. The cougar's ears twitched at his footsteps, but she remained motionless. Encouraged by this apparent docility, Daxter raised his smartphone and activated the camera flash, while whistling to direct her attention toward the lens. The brilliant flash illuminated two small cubs nestled against their mother's flank, invisible until that fatal moment. The female's demeanor transformed instantly to explosive aggression. She launched herself with terrifying speed, her 120-pound frame covering 20 feet in a devastating bound. The impact drove Daxter backward onto sharp limestone as the cougar's claws extended fully. Her initial strike raked across his throat with surgical precision, severing his carotid artery and trachea in one motion. Blood erupted in pulsing streams as his severed windpipe produced only wet, gurgling sounds. The cougar's jaws clamped down on Daxter's skull above his left ear, 4 canine teeth penetrating the temporal bone with audible cracks. She shook violently, employing bone-breaking techniques used on deer. Daxter's body convulsed as his nervous system shut down, but the cougar interpreted these movements as continued resistance. Her rear claws raked downward across his abdomen, opening deep furrows, exposing intestinal tissue. Front paws pressed against his chest with crushing force, fracturing 3 ribs while seeking a secure neck grip. Her teeth found cervical vertebrae, and a final powerful bite severed his spinal cord at the second vertebra. The attack lasted under 2 minutes. Daxter's phone lay nearby, its cracked screen displaying a blurry image of golden fur and reflected eyes. The cougar briefly attempted to drag him toward her cubs before leading her offspring deeper into rocky terrain. Ranch hand Miguel Santos discovered Daxter's body at 10:15 p.m. during routine security checks. The Blanco County Sheriff's Department arrived with Texas Parks and Wildlife officials within 45 minutes. Wildlife biologist Dr. Sarah Chen concluded Daxter had unknowingly approached a female with cubs, triggering defensive behavior consistent with documented cougar patterns. The Daxter family requested privacy while expressing gratitude for community support. No legal action was pursued against wildlife authorities, as the attack occurred during unauthorized tracking that violated safety protocols. The incident sparked debates about mountain lion populations, with some calling for increased hunting permits, while others advocated for better public education. The responsible cougar was never located, having moved her cubs following the confrontation. It was March 15, 2015. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cracked asphalt pathways of Sunset Safari Park, a modest roadside attraction nestled between rolling hills and dense pine forests. The facility operated on a shoestring budget with aging enclosures and minimal staffing, attracting families seeking an affordable weekend adventure. Spring break had brought a steady stream of visitors, though the skeleton crew meant most animal areas remained unsupervised for visitors during non-feeding hours. 17-year-old Marnie Vallon had always possessed an insatiable curiosity that often pushed boundaries. A junior at Asheville High School, she was known among friends for her adventurous spirit and tendency to bend rules when adults weren't watching. That Saturday, she accompanied her mother, Sarah, and 13-year-old brother Jake on what was meant to be a simple family outing. The trio had spent the morning wandering through exhibits featuring aging big cats, weathered reptile displays, and a small petting zoo area that had seen better days. The chimpanzee enclosure sat at the park's far end, separated from visitors by a chain-link fence barely 6 feet high. A natural rock formation along the perimeter created an elevated viewing area that management had never properly secured. 3 adult chimpanzees inhabited the space, 2 males and 1 female, rescued from a defunct research facility years earlier. The animals had grown increasingly agitated in recent months due to overcrowding and inadequate enrichment programs. Chimpanzees possess strength 5 to 7 times greater than humans, With powerful jaws capable of exerting 1,300 pounds of pressure per square inch, their territorial nature and complex social hierarchies make them unpredictable around strangers, particularly when food is involved. These particular specimens had developed aggressive tendencies toward visitors after years of inadequate care and stimulation. As her family examined informational plaques near the entrance, Marnie noticed the accessible rock ledge overlooking the enclosure. The largest male chimpanzee, weighing approximately 150 pounds, sat near the fence line while his companions foraged in the background. Retrieving a piece of candy from her jacket pocket, Marnie climbed onto the rocky outcrop and extended her phone for a selfie, dangling the treat through the chain-link barrier to attract the animal's attention. The dominant male immediately fixated on the offered food, approaching the fence with deliberate movements. As Marnie leaned further over the barrier to capture the perfect shot, the chimpanzee's powerful hand shot through the mesh, clamping down on her extended wrist with crushing force. The animal's grip tightened as it pulled her arm deeper into the enclosure, the chain link cutting into her shoulder as she was dragged against the fence. Marnie's screams pierced the afternoon air as the chimpanzee's teeth sank into her forearm, tearing through muscle and tendon with savage efficiency. The commotion triggered an immediate response from the other two chimps, who rushed toward the disturbance with aggressive vocalizations. The second male grabbed her upper arm through the fencing, his canine teeth puncturing the bicep and creating deep lacerations that exposed bone. The female chimpanzee joined the attack, biting down on Marnie's shoulder blade as she was pressed against the barrier. The combined pulling force of three animals created massive trauma as flesh separated from underlying structures. Her right arm suffered compound fractures as the bones snapped under the tremendous pressure, while deep puncture wounds from multiple bite attacks caused severe hemorrhaging. Park staff arrived within minutes, armed with tranquilizer equipment and emergency protocols. The chemical restraints took several minutes to take effect, during which time the animals continued their assault on the trapped teenager. When the chimpanzees finally released their grip, Marnie collapsed onto the pathway with catastrophic injuries to her right arm, shoulder, and upper torso. Emergency responders transported her to Mission Hospital in critical condition, where surgeons worked frantically to repair the extensive damage. Despite multiple operations and intensive care treatment, systemic infection set in within 48 hours. The combination of massive tissue trauma, bone damage, and bacterial contamination from the animal bites proved overwhelming for her young immune system. Marnie Vallone succumbed to septic shock and multiple organ failure on March 17, 2015. The North Carolina Department of Agriculture launched an immediate investigation into safety protocols at Sunset Safari Park, ultimately resulting in the facility's permanent closure 6 months later. The three chimpanzees were relocated to an accredited sanctuary in Florida. Marnie's family established a foundation promoting wildlife safety education in her memory, while the local community mourned the loss of a vibrant teenager whose curiosity had led to tragedy. The incident sparked renewed debate about roadside zoo regulations and visitor safety measures across the state. However, for those who knew Marnie Vallone, no policy changes could restore the promising life cut short by a moment's poor judgment. It was September 20th, 2017, on the rural outskirts of Taita Taveta County, Kenya. The late afternoon sun hung low over the horizon, staining the sky in muted shades of orange and gold. A dry wind moved through the acacia scrub, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and vegetation baked under months of relentless heat. Joseph Muli, 42, walked at the front of his family. A tall, broad-shouldered man, he was a subsistence farmer who had lived his entire life in the shadow of Tsavo National Park. Years of tending crops and livestock had made him wary but confident in the bush. Behind him walked his wife, Miriam, 39, carrying a woven basket of maize and cassava. Their two children, Daniel, 14, and Ruth, 11, trailed close, balancing small bundles of supplies brought from a relative's home. They'd walked this 2-mile track countless times. Familiarity dulled caution, and despite the area's wildlife crossings, Joseph believed real danger stayed deeper in the park. He had heard talk in the village that a lion had been spotted nearby a few days earlier, but it was the dry season. Livestock and waterholes were the focus of most predators' movements, not people walking in daylight. The warning was filed away, acknowledged, but dismissed. The path wound through thorny acacia and tall grass, cicadas droning under hornbill calls, the thick scrub hiding more than the goats or hares that usually stirred it. What the muleys likely didn't fully appreciate was the apex predator that ruled these lands. Lions in Tsavo were formidable creatures, with adult males typically weighing 350 to 500 pounds and possessing muscular bodies capable of short bursts of speed up to 35 miles per hour. Their bite force, approaching 650 pounds per square inch, could crush the windpipe or spine of prey within seconds. While they typically hunted at night, injured or desperate lions sometimes took greater risks, targeting slower-moving animals in daylight. A large male with a slight limp had been reported near the village by herders earlier that week. Rangers believed it had sustained injuries to its hindquarters, possibly from a territorial fight. A predator unable to chase its normal prey often turned to whatever it could catch, and humans on foot were slower than antelope. Passing a dry gully where brush thickened, Miriam spotted paw prints the size of dinner plates, but stayed silent. A faint cough came from within, masked by the wind as they neared halfway home. A distant herder later recalled a deep growl before the lion burst from the thicket, closing the gap with startling speed despite its limp. It hit Joseph hard, forelimbs locking around him as ribs cracked and claws scraped bone. Miriam screamed and turned to pull her children back, but the movement triggered the lion's predatory focus. It released Joseph and lunged for her, jaws clamping onto her neck with enough pressure to silence her in seconds. Daniel tried to run, his sandals skidding in the dust, but the lion's paw hooked his leg and dragged him off balance. The claws tore through fabric and flesh, and he was pulled beneath the animal's body. Ruth's cry carried across the scrub before it was abruptly cut short. The lion's attacks were methodical: bite, pin, release, using sheer strength and precision to subdue each victim. The air was thick with the smell of blood and dust, the dry grass thrashing under the predator's weight. The entire assault lasted less than 5 minutes, brutal and efficient. From his vantage point 100 yards away, the herder froze, his voice catching in his throat as he took in the scene. The lion's tail flicked in agitation as it moved from one body to the next, ensuring none could rise again. By the time the first shouts rang out from approaching villagers, the lion stood over the still forms, chest heaving, muzzle darkened. The shouts grew louder, accompanied by the thud of running feet and the crack of sticks striking together. The lion backed away, pausing only once to glare at the intruders before disappearing into the scrub. Villagers surrounded the scene, the dust still hanging in the air. Joseph's body lay face down, one arm bent at an unnatural angle. Miriam's basket was overturned, maize spilling into the dirt. Daniel's sandal was several feet from where he lay, and Ruth's small bundle of supplies was torn open. The herder who had first seen the attack ran back toward the main road, shouting for help. He reached a group of men near the village water pump, and one of them used a mobile phone to call local authorities. It took just under an hour for wildlife rangers and police to arrive, their truck bouncing over the rough track toward the site. Rangers followed the tracks into the bush and identified the prints as belonging to the injured male. For 2 days, the search continued. The lion was eventually located resting in a shaded hollow, showing no signs of retreat when approached. It was shot on sight, a decision made quickly to prevent further attacks. Examination revealed deep scars along its flank and hip, confirming the earlier reports of injury. The Muli family's funeral was held the next morning in the village square. Simple wooden coffins were laid side by side, surrounded by relatives and neighbors. The service was quiet, the only voices those of the elders reciting prayers. Local newspapers carried a small notice about the incident. There was no national coverage. In the days following, villagers avoided the path entirely, forcing them to take a longer route to the fields. The place where the attack occurred became overgrown, the silence there heavier than before. It was June 3rd, 2014, along a remote stretch of riverbank in Brazil's Pantanal region. Pale dawn light turned the river mist to silver threads. Humid air carried the scent of wet plants and fish, broken only by capybara grunts and the soft slap of water, a stillness that felt like the forest holding its breath. Rafael Torres, 29, led the narrow trail, machete in hand. A skilled fisherman who knew the Pantanal's currents and fish patterns, his stubborn confidence often led him to ignore risks and navigate without guides. This trip, like many before, was to check and reset the fishing nets he'd left in the shallows overnight. His cousin, Marcos, had come along to help haul the morning's catch back to camp. In the weeks before, fishermen had reported jaguar sightings along this section of the river. A few claimed the animal had been approaching camps at night, its low cough audible from inside tents. Rafael dismissed the warnings, convinced caimans were the real threat, not hidden cats. He carried the machete more from habit than caution. The trail wound through dense gallery forest, roots twisting into the river. Damp leaves softened the ground, humid air clinging to the skin. Sunlight cut through the canopy in sharp patches, the thick undergrowth able to hide a full-grown animal just feet away. What Rafael likely didn't fully appreciate was the apex predator that ruled these waters. Jaguars in the Pantanal are the largest in the species, with adult males reaching over 250 to 320 pounds and measuring more than 6 feet from nose to tail. Unlike other big cats, jaguars often hunt by ambush from the water's edge, striking with short, explosive bursts before dragging their prey into cover or underwater. They are strong swimmers, capable of moving silently through flooded channels. That morning, Marcos spotted fresh tracks in the mud near the trailhead, broad, rounded prints without claw marks, but Rafael brushed them off. Near the river bend, Marcos stopped to free tangled line, while Rafael moved ahead into narrowing reeds. The birds fell silent, and even the usual rustle in the undergrowth ceased. The rustle came first, quick, heavy, and too close to be wind. Before Rafael could turn, the jaguar exploded from the cover of grass, its forepaws hitting his back and driving him face first into the muddy bank. The weight was crushing, forcing the air from his lungs. Claws raked across his ribs, tearing through shirt and skin with devastating precision. The jaguar's jaws clamped onto the base of his neck, teeth sinking deep into flesh and muscle. Rafael's body jolted with the force, the pain radiating into his shoulders like fire. He felt the hot breath of the animal and the rough scrape of its tongue between bites. The predator's bite force, capable of crushing bone, sent shockwaves through his entire body. Marcos's shout carried over the sound of splashing water as he ran forward, grabbing a thick branch from the ground. The blow to the jaguar's flank made it release, but only for a heartbeat. It turned, snarling, and lunged again, this time sinking its teeth into Rafael's left shoulder. The pressure was immense, and something gave way deep inside, muscle and sinew tearing under the incredible force. Marcos struck again, harder, shouting and swinging until the jaguar backed off, eyes locked on them with predatory focus before slipping into the water. The sound of its movement faded quickly into the current, leaving only the echo of violence and the metallic smell of blood mixing with river mud. Raphael lay on his side, coughing, mud and blood mixing beneath him. His neck and shoulder were slick with puncture wounds, each one a testament to the jaguar's killing efficiency. 3 deep claw lacerations ran diagonally across his torso, and his thigh bled steadily from another rake of claws. Marcos hauled him upright, half carrying, half dragging him back toward camp. Every step jarred the injuries, sending flashes of pain through Raphael's arm and side. Back at camp, Marcos shouted for help to 2 fishermen preparing to set out in another canoe. One of them grabbed a mobile phone and contacted the nearest settlement's ranger station. It took about an hour and 20 minutes for assistance to arrive by motorboat, the responders bringing basic medical supplies. At camp, they stabilized Raphael enough to move him into the canoe. The trip to the settlement took over an hour, the water seeming to drag against the hull. By the time they reached the dock, Raphael's skin was pale under the morning sun, his left arm hanging limp. A small clinic provided initial care until a helicopter arrived to take him to a regional hospital. Raphael survived, but the damage was lasting. Months of recovery left him with reduced mobility in his arm and deep scars across his torso that would never fully fade. In the village, the story of the attack spread quickly. Fishermen avoided that section of river for weeks, citing it as proof that jaguars, when hungry or territorial, would target humans without hesitation. It was February 11th, 2015, on the forested edge of the Sundarbans, Bangladesh. The tide had pulled back, exposing slick mudflats between the mangroves. The air carried the sharp scent of salt water mixed with the earthy smell of rotting vegetation. Overhead, the morning sky was muted by haze, diffusing the sunlight into a pale gray wash. It was quiet, except for the soft slosh of water in the channels, the kind of silence that made every rustle in the mangroves feel closer than it was. Rina Begum, 34, stepped carefully along the edge of a mangrove root, balancing a bundle of dry wood against her hip. A widow for 6 years, she supported herself by collecting firewood and selling small fish at the village market. She was known for her determination, often venturing farther into the forest than most women in her village. With the dry season reducing wood supplies near home, she had decided to take her 12-year-old niece, Afsana, deeper into the mangroves that morning. The plan was simple: gather wood for the week and return before the tide. Tiger attacks were common here, but Rina trusted daylight, noise, and her dulled sickle to keep her safe. Dense mangroves arched over the mud, roots slick with algae. Crabs darted through brackish pools, warm, still air broken by a kingfisher's call and the splash of fish. In the tightest growth, visibility dropped to a few yards. What Rina may not have fully grasped was that these waters belonged to an apex predator. The Bengal tiger of the Sundarbans is smaller than its inland cousins, but just as deadly. Males typically weigh 300 to 400 pounds, with a top speed of 35 miles per hour in short bursts. They are powerful swimmers, capable of crossing tidal channels to stalk prey with deadly precision. Unlike other tigers, Sundarbans tigers are known to see humans as part of their prey range, a behavior influenced by the overlap between human settlements and their hunting grounds. That week, a fisherman spotted fresh tiger tracks, and another heard its rasping roar at dawn. Rina listened but carried on, certain it was far away. As they moved deeper into the forest, she noticed long drag marks in the mud, possibly from a crocodile hauling itself into the water, but dismissed them. By mid-morning, their bundles were nearly full when the forest fell silent. A branch snapped ahead, sharp and deliberate. Rena saw only shadows and kept walking, unaware that a predator was watching. The attack came without warning. A flash of orange and black blurred through the mangroves, followed by the deep thud of impact as the tiger's weight hit Rena from behind. She dropped her bundle, the sticks scattering into the mud. The animal's claws raked down her back, tearing through her thin cotton blouse and opening deep parallel wounds with surgical precision. She stumbled forward, trying to twist away, but the tiger's jaws clamped onto her upper back, teeth piercing muscle and sinew. The force drove her to her knees, the predator's incredible bite force crushing tissue and bone. The attack was brutal and efficient, a demonstration of millions of years of evolutionary refinement designed to kill large prey quickly. Afsana screamed, the sound carrying across the water channels like a siren of terror. The tiger shifted its grip, dragging Rena sideways toward thicker cover with the methodical efficiency of a predator that had performed this ritual countless times. Each pull was punctuated by the wet sound of tearing fabric and the thump of her body against roots. Rena kicked and pushed against the mud, but her movements slowed as the predator's weight bore down. Her left arm went limp, the shoulder joint wrenched under the tiger's devastating bite. The tiger's powerful jaws worked with mechanical precision, designed to drag prey to secluded feeding areas where it could consume its kill without interference. Every movement demonstrated the evolutionary perfection that made these predators so deadly in their natural habitat. Afsana turned and ran toward the main trail, her cries drawing the attention of two nearby fishermen. They arrived within minutes, armed with long bamboo poles, shouting before melting into the shadows with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible in their environment. The fishermen carried Rena back toward the water's edge. One of them pulled out an old mobile phone and called a ranger station in a nearby village. It took about an hour for a small motorboat carrying rangers and a health worker to arrive, navigating through the winding tidal channels to reach them. Rena remained conscious but weak, her blouse soaked through with blood. The tiger's claws had left 3 deep parallel gashes across her back, each one a testament to the predator's killing efficiency. She was placed on a makeshift stretcher, ferried by boat to the dock, and then loaded onto a motorcycle that took her to the nearest clinic. From there, she was transferred to a larger hospital in Khulna. Rena survived the attack, but the damage was permanent. 3 deep scars marked her back, and she lost full strength in her left arm due to nerve injury caused by the tiger's crushing bite. She never returned to the deeper mangrove areas, relying instead on help from relatives to gather wood. The site of the attack became another unmarked place in the Sundarbans, where locals would point and say simply, "A tiger came here." It was April 6th, 2016, in the lower foothills near Shimla, Himachal Pradesh, India. The air was cool and dry, the kind that carried sound clearly across the slopes. Patches of sunlight broke through moving clouds, casting shifting patterns over the rocky ground. It was an ordinary grazing day for the shepherds, but the silence in the forest beyond felt heavier than usual. Ramesh Lal, 51, walked slowly behind his small herd of sheep, his weathered wooden staff in hand. He had been shepherding since he was a boy, following the same seasonal routes that his father had once taken. His livelihood depended on keeping the herd safe from straying into ravines or wandering too close to the forest. That afternoon, he had chosen a grazing spot near the edge of a pine stand, close enough for shade, but open enough to watch the animals spread out across the slope. In the weeks prior, The Forest Department had issued a general warning, advising herders to stay in open areas and work in pairs. Ramesh acknowledged the advice, but decided to work alone. The day was clear, and he believed that a leopard would stay hidden deeper in the forest unless provoked or starving. The open ridge was dotted with shrubs and boulders, sheep bells clinking in the quiet. Beyond, dense pines stood over a carpet of needles, resin scenting the air as clouds briefly dimmed the slope. What Ramesh likely didn't fully appreciate was the apex predator that ruled these mountains. Leopards in the Himalayan foothills are opportunistic predators, with adult males typically weighing 110 to 165 pounds. Their muscular build and flexible spine allow them to leap more than 20 feet in a single bound. These predators possess incredible stealth capabilities, their spotted coats providing perfect camouflage among the dappled shadows of rocky terrain. Known for dragging kills into cover to feed, they can overpower animals many times their own weight, targeting the neck or spine to incapacitate quickly. Their bite force can exceed 400 pounds per square inch, enough to crush vertebrae and sever major blood vessels. Ramesh had heard occasional rustles from the pine edge, but assumed it was his sheep moving through brush. At one point, he noticed a cluster of birds erupt from the tree line, but the movement was too brief to draw his attention for long. A small shadow shifted on the slope above him, hidden in the uneven light. Predatory eyes had been watching his every movement. Then the atmosphere changed. The sheep bells had gone quiet. The constant bleating of his flock seemed to pause. The attack came in a single, explosive motion. The leopard launched from a concealed boulder just above Ramesh's position, landing with its full weight on his back. The impact drove him face first into the rocky soil, knocking the staff from his grip. In the same instant, claws dug deep into his lower spine and hips with surgical precision. The pain was blinding, and his legs went numb almost immediately. The claws had severed nerve pathways in his lower back. The leopard's jaws clamped onto his side, teeth piercing through muscle and into the ribcage with devastating force. Its hind legs raked across his thighs in rapid, tearing motions, shredding the thick wool of his trousers and cutting into flesh. The attack was brutal and efficient, demonstrating millions of years of evolutionary refinement designed to kill prey quickly and effectively. The air filled with the sharp scent of blood, mixing with the musky odor of the predator's fur. Ramesh's shouts carried across the slope, raw and urgent, startling nearby shepherds tending their own flocks. The leopard's powerful jaws worked with mechanical precision, each bite calculated to cause maximum damage while maintaining its grip on the struggling victim. Two men dropped their tools and ran toward the sound, picking up rocks and thick sticks as they moved. They could see the leopard's spotted coat flashing in the sunlight as it shifted position over Ramesh. The animal turned its head toward them, ears flattened, its tail lashing the air in irritation. One of the men hurled a rock, striking the leopard in the shoulder. The predator snarled but didn't immediately retreat, its predatory instincts warring with its survival instincts. The second man rushed in, swinging his stick at the animal's flank. After several more strikes and shouts, the leopard backed away, melting into the shadows of the pines with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible in their natural habitat. The shepherds quickly assessed Ramesh's condition. One stayed with him, while the other sprinted down the slope toward a roadside tea stall, known to have a landline phone. The call to the local forest department went through within minutes, and it took just over an hour for a jeep carrying forest rangers and a paramedic to reach the site. Ramesh lay motionless, face pale and breathing shallowly. The back of his shirt was shredded, soaked dark with blood. Deep puncture wounds marked his side, and 3 parallel gashes crossed each thigh. The rescuers lifted him carefully, avoiding movement in his lower body, and carried him down the slope toward the road. Hospital scans showed severe spinal damage and deep lacerations needing surgery. Ramesh survived, but the leopard's attack had severed nerves, ensuring he would never walk again. Months of rehabilitation followed, focused on adapting to life in a wheelchair. The scars on his thighs and torso healed into thick, raised lines, but the loss of mobility ended his shepherding career forever. Local authorities increased leopard monitoring in the region, setting up camera traps and patrolling grazing areas. The slope where the attack happened remained unused for grazing, the boulder above it still marked with faint scratch lines from the leopard's claws. It was October 14th, 2013, along a remote hiking trail in the Bitterroot Range of western Montana. The sky was clear and crisp, the thin autumn air cold but warmed by the sun. Gold and rust leaves carpeted the slopes, crunching underfoot. With no wind, only the creak of shifting branches broke the stillness, carrying every sound farther than usual. A perfect day for a solo hike. Joshua David, 38, moved steadily along the incline, the straps of his day pack creaking with each step. A longtime outdoorsman, he was known among friends for his meticulous planning and physical endurance. He had spent decades hiking and hunting in Montana's backcountry, favoring remote trails far from the reach of cell service. His pack held water, a GPS, a knife, and a small first aid kit, but no firearm. Mark believed daylight hikes made cougar encounters unlikely. Hiking alone was intentional. Solitude was why he came. After checking the weather and telling his brother his route, he parked at the unmarked trailhead before sunrise. The trail climbed through conifer forest and open meadows toward a ridge for lunch. Pine scent mixed with the dry tang of needles, sunlight cutting through to catch dust from his boots. In shaded spots, frost-edged fallen leaves and distant woodpeckers echoed through the trees. What Joshua may not have realized was that these mountains were the domain of the cougar, also called the mountain lion, the largest wildcat in North America. Adult male cougars can exceed 150 pounds. Their long, muscular bodies are built for silent pursuit and explosive power. Masters of ambush, they can trail prey for minutes or even hours before striking, usually targeting the neck to crush the windpipe or sever the spinal cord with precision. Late in the morning, Joshua crossed a narrow trail between a drop-off and thick brush. Pausing to adjust his pack, he heard a faint shift in the brush above, saw nothing but a darting squirrel, and kept walking. Then the atmosphere changed. The birds had gone silent. The constant rustle of small animals in the undergrowth seemed to pause, as if the forest itself sensed the presence of a predator. The cougar had been trailing him for several minutes, its body low to the ground, moving with deliberate precision. Predatory eyes had been tracking his every movement, calculating the perfect moment to strike. When Mark stepped into the next open section, the animal dropped from a low rock ledge behind him with explosive force. The impact drove him forward, the force of roughly 115 to 220 pounds slamming into his back with devastating power. His knees buckled, and he fell hard onto the dirt and leaves. The breath knocked from his lungs. The cougar's forepaws locked around his shoulders, claws cutting through jacket and shirt to dig into muscle with surgical precision. Its jaws closed on the side of his neck, teeth puncturing deeply into flesh and arteries. Joshua's arms flailed, reaching for his knife, but the predator shifted, pressing him into the ground with its full weight. The forest muffled his struggle, as the cougar's skill as a predator became terrifyingly clear. The attack was methodical and brutal. The cougar's hind claws raked along his back, each pull widening the fabric and flesh beneath with devastating efficiency. Its jaws released only to bite again, this time closer to the base of the skull, targeting the spinal cord. Joshua's movements slowed within moments as the predator's crushing bite force severed vital connections. His legs kicked weakly, then stilled entirely as the cougar maintained its grip, breathing heavily through flared nostrils. Two hikers approaching from farther down the trail heard a single sharp cry before they rounded a bend and froze. They could see the cougar hunched over a motionless form, tail twitching with predatory satisfaction. One shouted, throwing a rock in its direction. The cougar lifted its head, ears back, muzzle dark with blood, and after a long pause, slipped into the trees, vanishing into silence with the fluid grace that made these predators nearly invisible. The hikers reached Joshua within seconds, but there was no response. His body lay still, the forest around them returning to its deceptive tranquility. One of them used a satellite phone to contact Ravalli County Search and Rescue. It took about an hour and 15 minutes for the first team to reach their location, traveling on foot from the nearest access point due to the rugged terrain. When rescuers arrived, Mark's pack was shredded, his GPS cracked in the dirt, and his knife still sheathed. Blood pooled beneath his head and shoulders, soaking the leaves. Authorities followed cougar tracks circling the area, along with signs that it had been shadowing the trail for some time. Wildlife officers tracked the animal for nearly 2 miles before losing it in rocky terrain. Traps were set in the area, but the cougar was never confirmed to have been captured. Joshua's body was airlifted out and returned to his family in Missoula. The trail where the attack occurred was temporarily closed, and warning signs about cougar activity were posted at nearby access points. For weeks afterward, few hikers ventured into that section of the Bitterroot Range, the memory of that silent stretch of trail now tied to the morning when solitude turned fatal.
It was March 15, 2017, at the Ukutula Conservation Center in South Africa's Northwest Province. The 650-acre facility housed over 80 big cats, including a pride of 6 African lions in a specially designed breeding enclosure surrounded by double fencing and electric wire. Located near Brits, just 45 minutes from Hartbeespoort Dam, the center attracted thousands of international volunteers and tourists, annually seeking hands-on African wildlife experiences. Emily Cross, a 23-year-old social media influencer from Portland, Oregon, had arrived at Thornfield that morning as part of her month-long African adventure series. With only 3,000 TikTok followers, Emily desperately sought viral content to boost her struggling online presence. Her background as a former marketing assistant had taught her the importance of engagement metrics, but her transition to full-time content creation had proven financially challenging. Emily's personality combined dangerous risk-taking with an attention-seeking nature that consistently dismissed safety warnings. She had specifically chosen Thornfield for its reputation as a hands-on wildlife experience, believing close encounters with apex predators would finally give her the breakthrough content she needed. Her previous videos featured increasingly reckless stunts, from cliff jumping in Thailand to swimming with reef sharks in the Maldives. The sanctuary's afternoon feeding schedule created the perfect storm for Emily's fatal decision. At 3:30 p.m., while staff prepared the lions' daily meal of raw meat, Emily noticed the enclosure's maintenance gate had been left slightly ajar by a careless worker. The 3 adult lions inside, 2 females and 1 dominant male, were already agitated by the approaching feeding time, pacing restlessly near the fence line. The temperature had reached 95 degrees Fahrenheit, adding to the animals' irritability. African lions are apex predators weighing between 265 to 420 pounds, capable of reaching speeds up to 50 miles per hour in short bursts. Their powerful jaws generate a bite force of 650 pounds per square inch, while their retractable claws can extend up to 1.5 inches in length. Lions are opportunistic hunters with exceptional eyesight and hearing, making them formidable predators even in captivity. During feeding periods, their predatory instincts intensify significantly, triggering heightened aggression toward any perceived threats or unusual movements. Male lions are particularly territorial and will attack anything they perceive as competition or intrusion into their domain. Emily's fatal mistake began when she climbed over the outer safety barrier, ignoring the multiple warning signs posted around the enclosure. She squeezed through the partially open maintenance gate, entering the lion's territory during their most dangerous period. The 380-pound male lion immediately noticed her presence, approaching with cautious curiosity as Emily attempted to film a selfie video with her phone. She moved deeper into the enclosure, seeking better lighting for her shot. The attack commenced when Emily's sudden movements and the bright camera flash triggered the male lion's predatory response. The massive cat pounced without warning, his 420-pound frame slamming into Emily's chest and knocking her violently to the ground. Her phone flew 15 feet away, continuing to record the horrific scene. The male lion's powerful jaws clamped down on Emily's neck, his 4-inch canine teeth puncturing her carotid artery and crushing her trachea. Emily's body convulsed as the lion shook his head violently, tearing through muscle and cartilage with devastating force. Within seconds, the two female lions joined the attack, drawn by Emily's blood and the male's aggressive behavior. The first female bit down on Emily's left arm, her teeth crushing through the radius and ulna bones with audible snapping sounds. The second female attacked Emily's torso, her claws raking across the abdomen and puncturing the intestinal wall. Emily's white safari shirt turned crimson as arterial blood sprayed across the enclosure's sandy floor in expanding pools. The male lion maintained his death grip on Emily's neck, while the females continued their assault on her limbs and torso. Emily's body went limp after 90 seconds, as massive blood loss from her severed carotid artery caused rapid unconsciousness. The lions continued their attack for another 2 minutes, inflicting additional puncture wounds to her chest cavity and crushing several ribs. Emily Cross died from exsanguination and traumatic asphyxiation within 4 minutes of entering the enclosure. Sanctuary staff discovered Emily's body 20 minutes later during the scheduled feeding. The South African Police Service launched an investigation into the incident, citing negligence in security protocols. Emily's family released a brief statement requesting privacy while expressing their devastation over the preventable tragedy. The sanctuary temporarily closed its operations pending a full safety review. Local media coverage sparked debates about social media culture and wildlife tourism safety standards. It was September 8, 2016, in the remote backcountry of Glacier National Park, Montana. The 1.5 million-acre wilderness stretched across the Continental Divide, home to over 300 grizzly bears during peak salmon season. Damon had established his campsite near McDonald Creek, just 2 miles from the park's most active bear feeding grounds, where Chinook salmon spawned in massive numbers each fall. The area's dense forest canopy and rushing water created perfect cover for both predator and prey. Damon Whitaker, a 28-year-old wilderness survival blogger from Denver, Colorado, had arrived at Glacier 3 weeks earlier to film his most ambitious project yet. With 1,000 YouTube subscribers following his extreme survival content, Damon commanded significant sponsorship deals and brand partnerships. His background as a former park ranger at Rocky Mountain National Park had given him extensive wildlife knowledge, but his transition to full-time content creation had inflated his confidence to dangerous levels. Damon's personality combined genuine outdoor expertise with fatal overconfidence, believing his ranger experience made him invincible against any wilderness threat. He had specifically chosen Glacier's Grizzly habitat for his 30 Days Alone in Bear Country series, promising subscribers the most authentic wilderness experience ever filmed. His previous expeditions included surviving Arctic conditions in Alaska and navigating Amazon rainforests, each video garnering millions of views and reinforcing his belief in his own invincibility. The timing of Damon's expedition coincided with peak grizzly activity as bears prepared for winter hibernation. September marked the crucial hyperphagia period when grizzlies consume up to 20,000 calories daily, making them extremely aggressive around food sources. Damon had deliberately positioned his camp near McDonald Creek's salmon runs, ignoring park regulations about minimum distance requirements. His fatal decision to store food improperly was motivated by his desire to create authentic wilderness content, believing proper bear proofing would diminish the raw experience his audience craved. Grizzly bears are North America's apex predators, with adult females weighing 290 to 400 pounds and males reaching up to 790 pounds. These massive omnivores can sprint at speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour and possess a bite force of 975 pounds per square inch. Their 4-inch claws are perfectly designed for digging and tearing, while their exceptional sense of smell can detect food sources from over 18 miles away. During hyperphagia, dysphagia, grizzlies become extremely territorial and aggressive, particularly protective mothers with cubs who view any human presence as a direct threat to their offspring's survival. On the morning of September 8th, a 380-pound female grizzly with 2 yearling cubs approached Damon's campsite, drawn by the scent of improperly stored salmon he had caught the previous evening. Damon spotted the family group from 100 yards away and made his fatal mistake by approaching within 20 feet while filming, believing his ranger experience would allow him to safely observe and document their behavior. The mother bear immediately recognized Damon as a threat to her cubs and assumed an aggressive posture with ears flattened and hackles raised. The attack began when the sow charged at 30 miles per hour, covering the distance to Damon in less than 2 seconds. Her 380-pound frame slammed into his chest with devastating force, launching him backward into a fallen log with bone-crushing impact. Damon's camera continued recording from its tripod position as the bear's massive paws pinned him to the ground. The grizzly's first bite targeted Damon's skull, her powerful jaws crushing through his temporal bone and penetrating brain tissue. The distinctive cracking sound of fracturing bone echoed through the forest as cerebrospinal fluid began leaking from the massive head wound. The bear's 4-inch claws raked across Damon's chest and abdomen, tearing through his heavy jacket and puncturing his lung cavity. Each swipe opened deep lacerations that exposed underlying muscle and bone structure. The grizzly's second bite clamped down on Damon's neck and shoulder, crushing his clavicle and severing major blood vessels. Arterial blood sprayed in pulsing streams as the bear shook her massive head, further destroying tissue and bone. Damon's body went into shock within 90 seconds as massive blood loss and traumatic brain injury caused rapid unconsciousness. The protective mother bear continued her assault for another 3 minutes, delivering crushing bites to his torso that fractured multiple ribs and punctured vital organs. She returned twice more to ensure the threat was eliminated, inflicting additional facial trauma that rendered Damon unrecognizable. Death occurred from massive head trauma combined with exsanguination within 6 minutes of the initial charge. Park rangers discovered Damon's remains 4 days later after his emergency beacon activated. The National Park Service launched a comprehensive investigation into the incident, ultimately citing multiple safety violations in Damon's campsite setup. His family released a statement honoring his passion for wilderness education while acknowledging the preventable nature of his death. The incident sparked renewed debates about social media influencers operating in protected wilderness areas without proper permits or safety protocols. It was June 22, 2018, in the remote wetlands of Everglades National Park, Florida. The 1.5 million-acre wilderness contained over 200 freshwater and brackish waterways, home to an estimated 200,000 American alligators. Jade had chosen a secluded section of the Anhinga Trail, where cypress trees created dramatic silhouettes against the setting sun. The area's shallow waters and abundant wildlife made it a photographer's paradise, but also one of the park's most dangerous zones for human alligator encounters. Jade Holloway, a 25-year-old Instagram fitness model from Miami, had built her following through exotic location photo shoots that pushed safety boundaries. With 3,000 followers obsessing over her perfectly curated feed, Jade commanded lucrative sponsorship deals with major fitness and swimwear brands. Her background as a former personal trainer had given her exceptional physical conditioning, but her transition to full-time influencing had developed a dangerous obsession with creating increasingly dramatic content. Jade's personality combined vanity with reckless ambition, consistently dismissing safety warnings in pursuit of the perfect shot. She had specifically chosen the Everglades for a sunset bikini series, believing the dangerous backdrop would generate maximum engagement. Her boyfriend, Ethan McAllister, a 27-year-old professional photographer, had reluctantly agreed to accompany her, despite serious reservations about the location's safety. The couple arrived at their chosen spot during golden hour, when lighting conditions were optimal for photography. Ethan had researched the area extensively and repeatedly warned Jade about the high concentration of large alligators in these particular waters. Multiple park signs clearly stated the dangers of entering any water body within the Everglades, but Jade dismissed these warnings as overly cautious government regulations. American alligators are apex predators that can reach lengths of 14 feet and weights exceeding 1,000 pounds. These ancient reptiles possess a bite force of 2,980 pounds per square inch, among the strongest recorded in the animal kingdom. kingdom. Their powerful tails serve as both propulsion and weapons, capable of delivering bone-crushing blows. Alligators are ambush predators with exceptional patience, often remaining motionless for hours before striking with lightning speed. During summer months, their metabolism peaks, making them extremely aggressive hunters actively seeking prey in shallow waters. Jade's fatal mistake began when she waded waist-deep into the murky swamp water. Ignoring Ethan's increasingly frantic protests from the shoreline, she moved deeper into the water, seeking more dramatic angles, unaware that a 12-foot male alligator had been tracking her movements from 30 yards away. The massive reptile approached underwater with only its eyes and nostrils visible above the surface, perfectly camouflaged among floating vegetation. The attack commenced without warning as the 600-pound alligator exploded from the water with devastating speed. Its massive jaws clamped down on Jade's legs and pelvis with crushing force, the distinctive sound of breaking bones echoing across the swamp. Jade's screams pierced the evening air as the alligator's 80 razor-sharp teeth punctured through muscle and bone, creating deep lacerations that immediately began hemorrhaging blood into the dark water. The alligator initiated its signature death roll, a violent spinning motion designed to disorient prey and cause massive trauma. Jade's body was twisted and rotated with tremendous force as the reptile performed 3 complete rotations, fracturing her pelvis, femur, and several ribs. The spinning motion created a crimson whirlpool in the water as arterial blood poured from multiple puncture wounds. Each rotation drove the alligator's teeth deeper into Jade's tissue, crushing internal organs and severing major blood vessels. After completing the death roll, the alligator dragged Jade toward deeper water while maintaining its crushing grip on her lower body. Her desperate attempts to stay afloat became increasingly weak as massive blood loss and shock began shutting down her vital systems. The alligator's powerful tail thrashed violently, creating waves that pushed Jade's head underwater repeatedly. Water filled her punctured lungs as she struggled to breathe through the pain and trauma. Jade's movements became erratic and uncoordinated as her body entered the final stages of shock. The alligator continued dragging her toward its underwater lair, a behavior known as the death roll cache, where prey is stored for later consumption. Jade's head disappeared beneath the surface for the final time as the massive reptile pulled her into water over 8 feet deep. Death occurred from a combination of massive blood loss, internal trauma, and drowning within 4 minutes of the initial attack. Ethan remained helpless on the shoreline, unable to enter the water without becoming a second victim. Emergency responders arrived within 20 minutes but could only recover Jade's body after wildlife officials safely removed the aggressive alligator from the area. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission launched an investigation into the incident, ultimately ruling it a preventable tragedy caused by ignoring established safety protocols. Jade's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Park Service, claiming inadequate warning signage, though the case was later dismissed. It was August 14, 2015, at Seal Island near Cape Town, South Africa. The rocky outcrop sat in the heart of False Bay, surrounded by some of the world's most shark-infested waters. The island's 60,000 Cape fur seals created a natural feeding ground that attracted massive great white sharks year-round. Ethan had booked with Apex Predator Tours, a company offering cage diving experiences just 200 meters from the seal colony. Ethan McAllister, a 26-year-old extreme sports YouTuber from San Diego, had built his channel around death-defying aquatic adventures. With 2,000 subscribers following his increasingly dangerous stunts, Ethan commanded significant sponsorship deals from action camera and extreme sports brands. His background as a former Hollywood stuntman had given him exceptional swimming skills and water confidence, but his transition to content creation had developed a fatal need to constantly escalate the danger level of his videos. Ethan's personality combined genuine adrenaline addiction with susceptibility to peer pressure, often making reckless decisions to impress his 3 college friends who had joined him for this South African adventure. He had specifically chosen Seal Island during peak shark season for his Ultimate Shark Week series, promising subscribers the most extreme shark encounter footage ever captured. The group had arrived at Seal Island during prime hunting hours when great whites were most active. Ethan's 3 friends remained safely inside the protective cage while he made his fatal decision to exit and swim freely among the circling mauling predators. The dive master had explicitly warned against leaving the cage, but Ethan dismissed these safety protocols as overly cautious restrictions that would diminish his content's impact. Great white sharks are the ocean's apex predators, reaching lengths of 20 feet and weights exceeding 5,000 pounds. These ancient hunters possess rows of serrated teeth up to 3 inches long, designed to slice through flesh and bone with devastating efficiency. Their bite force reaches 4,000 pounds per square inch, capable of severing limbs in a single strike. Great whites can accelerate to 35 miles per hour in short bursts, launching themselves completely out of the water when attacking surface prey. Their exceptional electroreception allows them to detect the electrical fields generated by living creatures, making escape nearly impossible once they lock onto a target. Ethan's fatal mistake began when he exited the protective cage despite the dive master's frantic hand signals to return. An 18-foot female great white had been circling 20 feet below the cage, her massive form clearly visible in the crystal-clear water. Ethan swam directly toward the shark while filming with his waterproof camera, attempting to touch her dorsal fin for what he believed would be revolutionary footage. His erratic swimming movements and the electrical signals from his camera equipment triggered the shark's predatory instincts. The attack commenced when Ethan's flailing movements mimicked those of an injured seal, the great white's preferred prey. The massive shark accelerated upward from the depths at tremendous speed, her 18-foot frame cutting through the water like a torpedo. She struck Ethan from below with devastating force, her massive jaws clamping down on his left leg and hip with bone-crushing pressure. The impact launched both predator and victim toward the surface in an explosion of white water and blood. The great white's triangular teeth, each measuring over 2 inches, sliced through Ethan's wetsuit and penetrated deep into his thigh and pelvis. The initial bite severed his femoral artery, sending arterial blood streaming into the water in pulsing crimson clouds. Ethan's leg bones cracked audibly under the tremendous pressure as the shark's jaws compressed with 4,000 pounds of force per square inch. The predator's powerful head movements tore massive chunks of flesh from Ethan's lower body, exposing bone and muscle tissue. The great white released her initial grip and circled back for a second attack, drawn by the expanding blood cloud that now covered a 30-foot radius. Her second strike targeted Ethan's torso, massive jaws clamping down across his chest and abdomen. The shark's teeth punctured through his ribcage, collapsing both lungs and causing massive internal bleeding. A second great white, attracted by the commotion and blood, joined the feeding frenzy. The 16-foot male struck Ethan's already mangled lower body, his powerful bite completing the amputation of Ethan's left leg at the hip. The feeding continued for another 2 minutes as both sharks tore at Ethan's body, their powerful tails thrashing violently and creating a maelstrom of blood and foam. Death occurred from catastrophic blood loss and multiple organ failure within 5 minutes of the initial attack. The sharks eventually dispersed, leaving only fragments of wetsuit and equipment floating on the crimson surface. The dive boat crew recovered what remained of Ethan's body, using specialized equipment designed for shark attack recoveries. South African maritime authorities launched an investigation into the incident, ultimately citing multiple safety violations by both the tour operator and the victim. Ethan's family released a statement honoring his adventurous spirit while acknowledging the preventable nature of his death. It was November 3rd, 2014, in the vast wilderness of Kruger National Park, South Africa. The 7,500 square mile reserve housed over 17,000 elephants, including numerous bull elephants in musth during peak mating season. Tessa had convinced her family to stop at a remote watering hole near Satara Camp, where a massive bull elephant had been drinking alone for the past hour. Park regulations required all visitors to remain inside vehicles at all times, with multiple warning signs posted throughout the reserve. Tessa Blake, a 24-year-old travel blogger from Portland, Oregon, had arrived in South Africa with her parents and younger sister for a graduation celebration safari. With 4,000 Instagram followers captivated by her fearless wildlife photography, Tessa had built her brand around close-up encounters with dangerous animals across 6 continents. Her background as a recent college graduate with a degree in environmental science had given her theoretical knowledge about wildlife behavior, but her naive personality consistently underestimated real-world dangers. Tessa's thrill-seeking nature and dismissive attitude towards safety warnings had created increasing tension with her family throughout their 2-week African adventure. She had specifically requested this remote section of Kruger for its reputation as having the most aggressive elephant populations, believing dramatic close-up shots would set her content apart from typical safari photography. The Blake family had been observing the bull elephant from their Land Rover for 20 minutes when Tessa made her fatal decision. The massive animal displayed clear signs of must, including temporal gland secretions and aggressive posturing toward their vehicle. Their experienced guide had warned the family multiple times about the extreme danger posed by bulls in this condition, but Tessa viewed these warnings as obstacles to her content creation. African elephants are the largest land mammals, with bulls weighing up to 13,000 pounds and standing 13 feet tall. These intelligent giants possess tremendous strength, capable of uprooting trees and crushing vehicles with ease. Their trunks contain over 40,000 muscles and can lift objects weighing 770 pounds. During must, bull elephants experience a surge in testosterone levels up to 60 times normal, making them extremely aggressive and unpredictable. Bulls in must will attack anything they perceive as a threat, using their massive size and 6-ton weight as devastating weapons against intruders. Tessa's fatal mistake began when she quietly exited the Land Rover while her family was distracted by the guide's explanation of elephant behavior. She approached within 25 feet of the bull elephant, believing her environmental science background gave her special insight into animal behavior. The massive bull immediately noticed her presence and began displaying aggressive warning behaviors, including ear flapping, trunk swinging, and mock charges that Tessa completely misinterpreted as photogenic poses. The attack commenced when the 6-ton bull elephant decided Tessa posed a genuine threat to his territory. He charged at 25 miles per hour, his massive frame thundering across the dusty ground with earth-shaking force. Tessa attempted to run back toward the vehicle, but covered less than 10 feet before the elephant's trunk wrapped around her torso, lifting her 8 feet off the ground with crushing pressure. Her ribs cracked audibly under the tremendous force as the elephant's trunk compressed her chest cavity. The bull elephant slammed Tessa to the ground with devastating impact, her body hitting the hard-packed earth with bone-shattering force. Multiple vertebrae fractured on impact as her spine compressed under the tremendous pressure. The elephant immediately began trampling her with his massive front feet, each weighing over 2,000 pounds. The first stomp crushed Tessa's pelvis and left femur, the distinctive sound of breaking bones echoing across the savanna as fragments of shattered bone punctured internal organs. The elephant's second stomp targeted Tessa's chest and head, his enormous foot completely covering her upper torso. Her ribcage collapsed under the immense pressure, puncturing both lungs and causing massive internal bleeding. The crushing force compressed her skull, fracturing the temporal and parietal bones while causing severe brain trauma. Blood poured from her nose, ears, and mouth as cerebrospinal fluid leaked from the massive head injuries. The bull elephant continued his assault for another 30 seconds, delivering additional crushing blows to ensure the threat was eliminated. Each stomp caused further destruction to Tessa's already mangled body, pulverizing bones and organs beyond recognition. Death occurred instantaneously from massive blunt force trauma and complete organ failure. Park rangers arrived within 15 minutes but could only observe from a safe distance until the aggressive bull moved away from the scene. South African national parks launched a comprehensive investigation into the incident, ultimately ruling it a preventable tragedy caused by the violation of established safety protocols. Tessa's family released a heartbroken statement acknowledging her passion for wildlife while emphasizing the importance of respecting park regulations. It was March 15, 2014, when the golden African sun cast long shadows across Kruger National Park in South Africa. The dry season had transformed the landscape into yellowed grass and scattered acacia trees, where wildlife congregated around remaining water sources. 24-year-old Brooke Ellison had traveled over 8,000 miles from San Diego, California, carrying nothing but a backpack, her smartphone, and dreams of social media stardom. Brooke worked part-time at a coffee shop while building her travel blog and TikTok account, which had recently reached 3,000 followers. Her willingness to take risks for the perfect shot had begun attracting attention online. She had saved for months to afford this 5-day photography safari, seeing it as her chance to create viral content. The tour group consisted of 8 tourists, all eager to capture Africa's Big Five. Their experienced guide, Marcus, had repeatedly warned the group about maintaining safe distances from wildlife. He emphasized that lions could become extremely dangerous when protecting cubs. Brooke listened with half attention, more focused on planning her next post than absorbing safety instructions. She had already posted several photos that pushed boundaries, getting closer to animals than recommended. The African lion stands as one of nature's most formidable predators, capable of reaching speeds up to 50 miles per hour. Adult females typically weigh between 265 to 395 pounds and possess incredibly powerful jaw muscles that can exert a bite force of over 650 pounds per square inch. Female lions are particularly dangerous when cubs are present, as their maternal instincts override any natural wariness of humans. On the afternoon of March 15th, the safari vehicle approached a pride resting under a large marula tree. The group consisted of 3 adult females and 4 cubs, approximately 6 months old. Marcus positioned the vehicle at the regulation 75-foot distance, allowing tourists to observe and photograph the magnificent cats. The lionesses appeared relaxed, occasionally grooming their cubs. During a brief bathroom break, Brooke noticed the cubs playing and saw an opportunity for unprecedented footage. While Marcus assisted an elderly tourist with camera equipment, Brooke quietly slipped away from the designated area. She moved steadily toward the pride, her phone already recording, completely focused on creating content rather than the increasing tension in the lioness's body language. The closest female, a mature lioness with distinctive scars, immediately detected Brooke's approach. The cat's ears swiveled forward, and her amber eyes locked onto the advancing human. At 30 feet, the lioness rose to her feet, positioning herself between her cubs and the perceived threat. Her tail began twitching rapidly, a clear warning sign that Brooke failed to recognize. When Brooke raised her phone to capture a selfie, she made direct eye contact with the protective mother. In lion behavior, sustained eye contact represents a direct challenge and threat. The lioness lowered her head, flattened her ears, and released a low, rumbling growl. The attack came with explosive speed. The 350-pound lioness launched herself forward, covering the remaining 25 feet in less than 2 seconds. Her powerful hind legs propelled her massive frame through the air with deadly precision. Brooke had no time to react before 400 pounds of muscle and bone collided with her upper torso. The impact alone was devastating. The lioness's front paws struck Brooke's chest and shoulders with tremendous force, instantly fracturing multiple ribs and her sternum. The collision knocked Brooke backward onto the hard-packed earth, her phone flying from her grasp. The lioness's claws, each nearly 2 inches long, raked across Brooke's torso, tearing through clothing and flesh. The lioness then delivered a crushing bite to Brooke's neck and shoulder area. Her massive canine teeth penetrated deep into vital structures. The bite severed Brooke's carotid artery and damaged her trachea, causing immediate and catastrophic blood loss. The lioness maintained her grip for approximately 15 seconds, ensuring the bite remained fatal. Brooke's body went into immediate shock from the massive trauma and blood loss. Her heart rate spiked as her cardiovascular system attempted to compensate, but the damage was too severe. Within 90 seconds, her blood pressure dropped to critical levels, and her brain began shutting down from lack of oxygen. The combination of blood loss and airway damage proved fatal within 3 minutes. The lioness, having neutralized what she perceived as a threat to her cubs, immediately returned to her offspring. This behavior is typical of defensive attacks, where the animal's goal is protection rather than predation. Marcus and the other tourists reached the scene within 6 minutes, but Brooke had already succumbed to her injuries. South African national parks launched an investigation into the incident, reviewing safety protocols. The lioness and her pride were not relocated, as officials determined the attack was purely defensive behavior triggered by human error. Brooke's family released a statement requesting privacy while mourning their daughter's tragic death. It was August 23, 2015, when the oppressive Florida heat hung thick over the vast wetlands of Everglades National Park. The summer sun blazed overhead, creating a shimmering haze across the endless expanse of sawgrass marshes and cypress swamps. 21-year-old Jenna Hollister had driven down from Tallahassee with 5 sorority sisters, their SUV packed with coolers, cameras, and dreams of creating ultimate spring break content. Jenna was a junior at Florida State University, studying marketing while working part-time at a campus retail store. Her competitive nature and willingness to push boundaries for the perfect shot had attracted online attention. Her Instagram account had grown steadily, and she was determined to break into influencer territory. The Everglades trip was their group's grand finale before returning to classes. The group had arrived during peak mating season for American alligators, though none had researched the significance of timing. Park rangers had briefed visitors about maintaining safe distances from wildlife, especially during breeding periods when territorial behavior intensified. Jenna listened with casual attention, more interested in scouting locations than absorbing crucial information about alligator behavior. Her friends had noticed Jenna's pattern of taking increasingly risky photos throughout their Florida trip. She had waded closer to manatees than recommended and consistently dismissed safety concerns. Each post garnered more engagement, fueling her confidence that bigger risks would yield bigger rewards. The American alligator represents one of nature's most successful predators, virtually unchanged for over 200 million years. Adult males can reach lengths of 14 feet and weigh over 1,000 pounds, with incredibly powerful jaws capable of exerting bite forces exceeding 2,980 pounds per square inch. During mating season, male alligators become extremely territorial and aggressive, defending their chosen areas with lethal force. Alligators are ambush predators, perfectly adapted for shallow wetlands. Their eyes, ears, and nostrils are positioned on top of their heads, allowing them to remain nearly submerged while monitoring their surroundings. They can remain motionless for hours, appearing like floating logs until explosive bursts of speed propel them toward prey at speeds reaching 35 miles per hour in water. On the afternoon of August 23rd, the group discovered a secluded area where several large alligators basked along the water's edge. The largest specimen, a massive 12-foot male, lay partially submerged in shallow water near the bank. To the untrained eye, the reptile appeared docile as it remained perfectly still. Jenna immediately recognized the photo opportunity. While her friends set up their picnic on higher ground, Jenna grabbed her phone and began wading into knee-deep water. The murky brown liquid was warm against her legs as she moved slowly toward the resting alligator. She positioned herself approximately 6 feet from the massive reptile's head, close enough to capture both herself and the predator in a single frame. The alligator had been aware of human presence from the moment the group arrived. When Jenna entered the water and began moving closer, the reptile's predatory instincts activated. As Jenna raised her phone to capture the selfie, she created the perfect storm of triggers. The splashing water sent vibrations that the alligator's sensitive system interpreted as prey activity. The attack came with terrifying speed. The 800-pound alligator exploded from its resting position, its powerful tail propelling its massive body forward. Jenna had no time to react before the reptile's jaws clamped down on her left thigh with bone-crushing force. The impact knocked her off balance, sending her tumbling into deeper water. The alligator's conical teeth penetrated deep into muscle and bone. The initial bite severed her femoral artery, causing immediate and catastrophic blood loss that turned the brown water crimson. True to its species hunting behavior, the alligator immediately initiated its signature death roll. The massive reptile began spinning rapidly in the water, using its entire body weight to disorient and drown its victim. Jenna was pulled underwater and spun violently, her body rotating with the alligator's powerful movements. During the death roll, her femur snapped completely under the tremendous rotational forces. The combination of massive blood loss from the severed femoral artery and inability to breathe during prolonged submersion proved fatal. Jenna's body went into shock from trauma and blood loss, while her lungs filled with murky swamp water. After 2 minutes of continuous death rolling, her movements ceased entirely. The alligator released its grip and allowed the body to float to the surface, typical behavior as they often cache prey underwater for later consumption. Park rangers arrived within 20 minutes, but recovery efforts were complicated by multiple large alligators in the area. Jenna's body was retrieved 4 hours later. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission launched an investigation, reviewing safety protocols. Jenna's family released a brief statement expressing grief and requesting privacy. The incident reignited debates about social media culture and the dangerous lengths young people will go to for viral content. It was September 9, 2016, when the first hints of autumn colored the forests of Glacier National Park, Montana. The air was crisp, and the mountains stood tall against a sky streaked with early morning clouds. The park's dense stands of pine and aspen were alive with the sounds of birds and the distant rush of glacial streams. Victoria Langford, 28, had arrived the previous day, eager to spend a weekend alone in the backcountry. She was a marketing manager for an outdoor gear company, experienced in hiking and camping, and had come to Glacier to create promotional content for her company's new line of bear spray. Victoria's confidence in the outdoors was well known among her friends and colleagues. She had completed several solo hikes in the past and often posted about her adventures on social media. Her company encouraged her to document her trips, hoping her photos and videos would inspire others to explore the wild. Victoria planned to hike a remote trail along a salmon-rich stream, film herself using the new bear spray, and capture the park's rugged beauty for her followers. She packed light, carrying her camera, a tripod, and the bear spray, though she kept it in her backpack rather than on her belt where it would be easily accessible. The park was in the midst of the annual salmon run, a time when grizzly bears descended from the high country to feed along the streams. Rangers had posted warnings at trailheads, reminding hikers to make noise, travel in groups, and keep bear spray accessible at all times. Victoria, hiking alone, was aware of the risks but trusted her experience and the reliability of her gear. She moved quietly through the forest, pausing often to set up her camera and record the landscape. Her social media posts from previous trips showed a pattern of getting closer to wildlife than most experts would recommend, always in pursuit of that perfect shot. Grizzly bears are among North America's most powerful predators. Adult females can weigh up to 400 pounds, while males can exceed 600. Their muscular bodies, long claws, and keen sense of smell make them formidable hunters and scavengers. During the salmon run, grizzlies become especially active and territorial, often defending feeding sites from other bears and any perceived threats. A grizzly's charge can reach speeds of 30 miles per hour, and their bite force is strong enough to crush bone. Most attacks occur when a bear is surprised at close range or feels its cubs or food source are threatened. Mother bears with cubs are particularly dangerous, as their protective instincts override any natural wariness of humans. On the morning of September 9th, Victoria followed a narrow trail along a stream thick with spawning salmon. The air was filled with the scent of wet earth and fish, and the sound of rushing water masked her footsteps. She paused to film a segment for her company, then continued deeper into the woods, her camera in hand. Around a bend, she spotted a female grizzly with 2 yearling cubs, all focused on the salmon in the water. Victoria stopped, quietly setting up her tripod to capture the scene. The bear, intent on fishing, was only about 30 feet away. Victoria, hoping for a dramatic shot that would showcase both the wildlife and her company's products, moved a few steps closer, camera raised. The grizzly's head lifted, nostrils flaring as she caught Victoria's scent. The bear's posture changed instantly, ears back, head low, and a deep huff breaking the quiet. The cubs scrambled up the bank behind their mother, sensing danger. Without warning, the grizzly charged. In less than 2 seconds, the 400-pound bear closed the distance, her powerful legs propelling her across the uneven ground with terrifying speed. Victoria had no time to reach for her bear spray buried deep in her backpack. The bear struck with her front paws, knocking Victoria to the ground with tremendous force. The impact fractured Victoria's ribs and collarbone, and the collision sent her camera skidding into the brush. The grizzly's claws, each nearly 4 inches long, raked across Victoria's torso, tearing through her jacket and into the muscle beneath. The bear bit down on Victoria's shoulder and upper chest, her massive jaws crushing bone and severing arteries. Blood pooled rapidly on the forest floor as the bear shook her victim. The grizzly continued the attack for nearly a minute, delivering several more blows and bites before retreating to her cubs, who watched from the safety of the trees. Victoria's injuries were catastrophic. The initial impact had broken multiple ribs and her collarbone, while the bear's claws and teeth caused deep lacerations and puncture wounds throughout her upper body. The bite to her chest severed the subclavian artery, leading to rapid and fatal blood loss. The massive trauma sent her body into shock, and within minutes, Victoria lost consciousness and died at the scene. Rangers responding to an emergency call from another hiker found Victoria's body later that morning. The area was immediately closed off, and wildlife officials began a thorough investigation, reviewing trail safety protocols and bear management procedures. The grizzly and her cubs were not relocated or destroyed, as the attack was determined to be defensive behavior, triggered by a perceived threat to the cubs and food source. It was July 14, 2017, when the Southern Ocean waters around Neptune Islands churned with life off the coast of South Australia. The remote rocky outcrops served as a staging ground for cage diving with great white sharks. Faith Aldridge, 26, had traveled from Adelaide University, where she was completing her marine biology PhD, focusing on shark behavior and human interactions. Faith was a research assistant who had spent 3 years studying shark populations along the Australian coast. Her academic brilliance was matched by her passion for marine conservation, and she often spoke about the misunderstood nature of sharks. She had participated in numerous cage diving expeditions as part of her research, collecting behavioral data for her dissertation. Her colleagues knew her as someone who pushed boundaries in the name of science, often expressing frustration with protective barriers. The expedition was run by a reputable cage diving company with experienced dive masters who maintained strict safety protocols. Faith had joined the tour as a researcher gathering final data for her thesis. She carried underwater cameras and data collection equipment, planning to document feeding behaviors from within the safety of the steel cage. The morning briefing emphasized remaining inside the protective cage at all times, especially during feeding periods when sharks entered heightened activity states. The dive master explained that great whites were particularly active during this season, drawn by abundant seal populations. Faith listened while mentally planning her research observations, confident in her extensive diving experience. The great white shark represents the ocean's apex predator, a perfectly evolved killing machine unchanged for millions of years. Adult great whites can reach lengths of 20 feet and weigh over 5,000 pounds, with rows of razor-sharp triangular teeth designed to slice through flesh and bone. Their powerful tails can propel them through water at speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour. Great whites are investigatory predators, often approaching unfamiliar objects with exploratory bites. Their bite force can exceed 4,000 pounds per square inch, easily capable of severing limbs or crushing bones. During feeding frenzies, when blood and fish oils saturate the water, great whites enter a heightened predatory state. The afternoon dive began routinely, with the steel cage lowered into the water. Faith entered the cage with her diving equipment and underwater cameras, positioning herself to observe sharks that had begun circling the vessel. The crew initiated feeding protocol, dispersing fish blood and oil into the water to attract great whites. Within minutes, several massive sharks appeared. A particularly large great white, estimated at 16 feet in length, began making repeated passes near the cage. The water around the boat became increasingly murky with blood and fish oils, creating perfect conditions for aggressive shark behavior. Faith, eager to capture unprecedented footage, made the fatal decision to exit the protective cage. She slipped through the cage door, while the dive master was assisting other divers, swimming approximately 10 feet from the cage into the chum-filled water. Faith positioned herself between the feeding area and the approaching great white, hoping to capture the shark's feeding behavior. The great white detected Faith's presence when she was still 15 feet away, but the shark's predatory instincts were already fully engaged due to the feeding environment. The massive predator approached with deliberate speed, its black eyes focused on the unusual object. Faith raised her camera, unaware that her movements had triggered the animal's investigatory response. The attack occurred with devastating speed and precision. The great white struck Faith from below, its massive jaws opening to reveal rows of triangular teeth. The shark's bite encompassed Faith's torso, with the upper jaw clamping down on her chest and shoulder, while the lower jaw secured her waist. The initial bite force of over 4,000 pounds per square inch caused immediate and catastrophic damage to her rib cage, spine, and internal organs. The shark's teeth, each up to 3 inches long, penetrated deep into Faith's body cavity, severing major blood vessels, including the aorta. The bite crushed her sternum and several ribs, while the teeth punctured her heart and lungs. Blood immediately began pouring from the massive wounds, creating a crimson cloud in the water. True to great white behavior, the shark released Faith after the initial investigatory bite, recognizing she was not its preferred prey. However, the damage was already fatal. Faith's body went into immediate shock from the massive trauma and blood loss. The severed major arteries caused her blood pressure to drop rapidly, while the punctured lungs filled with water. She lost consciousness within 30 seconds and died from exsanguination and drowning within 2 minutes. The dive master and crew immediately initiated emergency procedures, pulling Faith from the water and attempting resuscitation, but the injuries were too severe. Emergency services were contacted, but Faith was pronounced dead before reaching shore. The South Australian Department of Environment launched an investigation, reviewing safety protocols. The tour operator faced scrutiny over supervision procedures, though investigators determined that Faith had violated safety protocols. It was November 18, 2018, when the dense forests of Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania echoed with the calls of chimpanzees and the rustle of leaves in the canopy above. The park, established by Jane Goodall in the 1960s, stretched along the shores of Lake Tanganyika, providing perfect habitat for one of Africa's most studied chimpanzee populations. Erica Winslow, 23, had arrived 6 months earlier as part of her PhD research in primatology, eager to observe chimpanzee social structures for her dissertation at Cambridge University. Erica was a graduate research assistant whose academic brilliance had earned her a coveted position on the long-term research project. Her professors praised her dedication, but her field supervisors had grown concerned about her tendency to anthropomorphize the chimpanzee's behavior. She often spoke about the animals as if they were friendly neighbors, rather than wild primates, expressing a desire to connect with them personally. The research station operated under strict protocols, developed over decades of study. Researchers were required to maintain a minimum distance of 15 feet from the chimpanzees at all times, never make direct eye contact, and avoid facial expressions that could be interpreted as threats. Erica had received extensive training on these protocols, but her field notes revealed a pattern of gradually pushing boundaries in her eagerness to capture intimate behavioral moments. Her research focused on territorial disputes between neighboring chimpanzee communities, particularly during feeding times when competition intensified aggressive behaviors. Erica had been documenting these interactions for months, but her supervisor had recently warned her about getting too close during tense situations. She dismissed these concerns, believing her months of observation had given her special insight into the animal's moods. Chimpanzees are humanity's closest living relatives, sharing over 98% of our DNA, but they possess physical capabilities that far exceed human strength. Adult males can weigh up to 150 pounds and are approximately 5 times stronger than humans of similar size. Their powerful arms can exert tremendous force, while their large canine teeth can inflict devastating wounds. Chimpanzees live in complex social hierarchies where dominance is established through displays of aggression and violence. During territorial conflicts, chimpanzees become extremely aggressive, viewing any unfamiliar presence as a potential threat to their group's resources. Their attacks are swift and brutal, targeting the face, hands, and genitals. Male chimpanzees are particularly dangerous during feeding competitions, when their territorial instincts are heightened. On the morning of November 18th, Erica followed a group of 8 chimpanzees to a fig tree heavy with ripe fruit. The location was disputed territory between 2 communities, and tension was evident in the animal's behavior. The alpha male, a large chimpanzee named Frodo, positioned himself prominently near the base of the tree, while other males spread out to guard the feeding site. As the morning progressed, a rival group approached from the east, creating a standoff between the two communities. The tension escalated rapidly, with both groups engaging in aggressive displays, screaming, and branch shaking. Erica, excited by the rare opportunity to observe intergroup conflict, moved closer to capture better footage. She positioned herself within 10 feet of the alpha male, violating safety protocols. When Frodo turned toward her, Erica made the fatal mistake of smiling and making direct eye contact. In chimpanzee communication, bared teeth represent an aggressive threat display, while direct eye contact is interpreted as a dominance challenge. Frodo's response was immediate and violent. The 120-pound male launched himself at Erica with explosive speed, his powerful arms propelling him across the distance in less than 2 seconds. His initial strike knocked Erica to the ground, his massive hands gripping her left arm with crushing force. The chimpanzee's grip strength of over 1,300 pounds per square inch immediately fractured the bones in her forearm. 2 other males joined the attack, interpreting Erica's presence as a territorial invasion during the critical feeding dispute. The chimpanzees focused their assault on Erica's face and arms, their primary targets during aggressive encounters. Frodo's powerful jaws clamped down on Erica's shoulder, his 4-inch canine teeth penetrating deep into the muscle and severing the brachial artery.
The attack continued for approximately 3 minutes, with the chimpanzees delivering multiple bites and strikes. Erica's scalp was partially torn away. Her fingers were severed by powerful bites, and deep lacerations covered her arms and torso. The most critical injury occurred when Frodo bit down on her neck, his canine teeth puncturing the carotid artery and causing massive blood loss.
Erica's body went into shock from the severe trauma and rapid blood loss. The severed brachial and carotid arteries caused her blood pressure to drop precipitously, while the multiple wounds created hypovolemic shock. She lost consciousness within 4 minutes of the initial attack and died from exsanguination before the research team could reach her location. The research station immediately contacted Tanzanian authorities and suspended all field activities pending investigation. The incident prompted a review of safety protocols across primate research facilities in the region. Erica Winslow's story served as a sobering reminder that even our closest relatives in the animal kingdom remain wild and unpredictable.
Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now.